Now, if I can move on now to petitions. This is item number 6. I just wanted to say at the outset regarding petitions that this is an opportunity for local residents who pay local taxes to put their view forward, and gives us an opportunity to hear what they have to say and to answer their concerns. I just would remind everybody that you have to be a local resident in order to sign a petition and for it to be valid. And although we have had a petition which is over 2,000 signatures, which could have asked for 5 minutes a debate. Actually, when verified, there were fewer than that. But we are absolutely delighted to give petition organisers, Colin Stevens and Mercedes Rowlandson, the opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes in support of the petition and respond to questions, that's questions for clarity, by members in accordance with the Council's petition scheme. So please, we look forward to hearing from you, Colin and Mercedes. I don't know where you are. So, we've got 2 of you. Okay, we've got
Hello
2.
There.
Hi. So who's going to speak first? Or are you speaking together?
We're doing it together.
I will leave you to organise that between you. Carry on, please.
Great.
Do.
Thank you. So thank you for having us, and I'll hand over to my colleague Mercedes, who was the inspiration for the petition. So I'll let her start.
Thank you. So good evening, and thank you to the Council for this opportunity to present this in progress petition from members of the public living in the East Cambs region, to show their support for the use of the community land that was formerly Mepal Outdoor Centre, to remain an outdoor centre with focus on leisure, health, well-being and environmental interests of the local community.
Disappointingly, tonight, of course, this council will only consider signatures from postcodes in the East Cambs district, but it has been interesting to note the community interest in this petition has gathered almost 2,500 signatures now from wider communities on the edge of Fenland, South Cambs, Peterborough and further afield. People who remember the centre and value it for the young people and families of this area. We've heard stories about the outdoor centre being people's first home, couples who have met there and gone on to have families together, people's careers flourishing because of what they learnt at the centre. But this petition is not about nostalgia.
We think it's fair to say, given our conversations with the members of the community, that most people have assumed that the District Council would one day find a way to return the activity centre to its valuable purpose as an education, leisure and wellbeing public resource when the good times return. And as a region, we can begin to think positively about the future.
It's been humbling for us to experience the strength of community feeling about the possible permanent loss of the outdoor centre as a public asset, and the surprise District Council announcement with no obvious public consultation beforehand that the community land is to be repurposed as a crematorium.
This is a major change in public land use that raises so many questions about local planning and the vision that the District Council appear to have with this local area. The population of this area is due to rise, and public resources and services such as the outdoor activity centres are going to become valuable assets for the future.
At a time when the current pandemic...
Could I just ask, Mercedes, we're not hearing you very clearly, so when you speak next, could you just go a little bit closer to your microphone? Sorry, Colin.
That's okay. At a time when the current pandemic situation is causing much discontent and worry, the changes of Brexit occurring, the housing developments continually appearing, and when government policy is heavily focused now on personal fitness, community health and well-being, economy, future business, and what is being promoted as a green recovery, what this area needs is an injection of positivity and a vision of the future that offers families and young people some sense of a healthy and sustainable future. This should include potential for local business development and job opportunities to encourage growth in the area.
At this time, it is vital that as a community, the community voice is heard and encouraged to be part of this conversation. We would ask that this ongoing petition be considered by this full council in its discussions tonight, and also by the Planning and Finance and Assets Committees as they approach this matter in the coming months. We will keep the council informed of the ongoing petition and the community interest that it gathers, and we look forward to any further discussions on this important community matter. So, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. We did hear that, Mercedes. Thank you very much indeed. I was just concerned we might not have heard everything you wanted to say. So this is an opportunity, and I'm looking for questions for clarity from members, not to get involved in a debate or a discussion or give a statement, but to ask if any members wanted to ask a question of either Colin or Mercedes that helps them understand more why they're here. So I have two at the moment asking those questions, and just remind you, it is for clarity only. So I had Councillor Dupre first, and then Councillor Harris, and then Councillor Josh Schumann. So Councillor Dupre, and then Councillor Inskip, but I'll go back over that list in a minute. Okay, Councillor Dupre.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask the petitioners whether they thought there was enough public interest to justify a full public consultation and discussion of the options.
Will I answer that? Yeah, I'll answer that. From our experience, the last 6 to 8 weeks, yes, definitely there is a lot of, I mean, COVID's made it very difficult, of course. It's been mostly online, but talking in our Mepal, Sutton and Ely sort of networks, there's definitely a lot of concern that we are going to be losing something that people thought was going to be returned to its original use. But yeah, no, definitely there is a lot of public interest in whatever progress is.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Councillor Harris.
Yes, I'd like to ask you about alternative uses. Are you aware of any ideas being put forward, any businesses that might show an interest in the outdoor centre as a potential asset?
It's been, well, that was, we've had various people, both local, we've had a company from Wiz Beach, we've had others outside the area who have talked to us in our Facebook groups, who are, we haven't had what I would call decisive conversations, because that's not our role. What we would like to have is more of an open conversation with people who think they can make a centre work in the future. But we've definitely had people with commercial backgrounds interested in the idea of the Mepal Outdoor Centre.
Thank you. So we move on to Councillor Josh Schumann.
Thank you, Chairman. My question has just been asked by Councillor Harris, and it was to see how much genuine expression of interest you had, and just to commend you on how many people that you've had that engaged with the petition, because it's difficult times and you have certainly cast the net far and wide in getting people interested in this. But the question was, how much genuine interest have you had from organisations that may wish to operate the centre? But I think from your answer, it sounds like you've had expressions of interest, but nothing sounding more concrete than that. But so thank you very much. I will leave the following questioners to answer their questions.
Did you want to come back on that, Colin? Or
I didn't get all of that because of the internet, but yeah, we haven't explored huge amounts, but we've had certain groups or people join us for conversations online, asking us what we think of what the centre should be. And we don't have a definitive idea. We would like to have more of a creative conversation with people about the use of the land within a kind of leisure, environmental, sport, facility.
thank you very much indeed. Councillor Inskip.
Yes, so my question sort of follows on a little bit, and it's really to understand the petitioner's thoughts on how they may run a potential outdoor centre sustainably in a way that could survive in the sort of current economic climate.
Yeah, right. Well, a part of the conversations we've had with those business organisations who've come forward, we're very clear that, and we've heard lots of rumours about why the centre failed, closed, And I think that would be another conversation, that it has to be sustainable. It has to be something that will sustain itself in terms of jobs and services. But for us, it's about thinking about long-term future of this area. And particularly when we're seeing, as I say, the population growing, there's a big, huge push for health and well-being, and to not see the potential of this site right now feels wrong. And we've had interest from people who want to do outdoor education. We've had people who want specific sports, and that is a conversation to be had.
Thank you, Colin. Councillor Downey.
Yes, hello. My question sort of follows on as well and is on a sort of a similar theme. Just to ask whether you're proposing that the centre be returned to its kind of former status with no change, or whether you have a more expansive idea for what you want to do with it, what could be done with it, what you've heard from other people, that kind of thing.
Yeah, Mercedes, pop in if you want, but the conversations have been, I think when we started off, it was Save Mepal Outdoor Centre, but it soon rapidly became, because of course the building is no longer there, the iconic tents are something that people remember, and in the image and the memory of the old centre is strong in people's heads. But as we said, we're not looking to return it, I think, to what it was. Times have moved, and we need to feel that we're providing something with any centre like that that matches the modern changing population we've got. We've got a lot of new people coming to the area from the cities. We've got a lot of young people now who are not moving away because it's too expensive to move to London, and they're living at home. So that we're going to have the demographic is changing all the time. And so that's why we'd love the principle of creating something rather than taking something away. And from that, we have to then figure out what we would do with it as a community and where it might go long term.
Thank you. And I have only one more speaker, and I think we'll stop that in terms of question. Well, I might let Councillor Wilson in, who just got there by the skin of his teeth. But then after, no more questions after Councillor Wilson's. But first of all, Councillor Hunt.
Thank you very much indeed. By way of being helpful, have you had detailed discussions with Councillor Dupre? And I say particularly with Councillor Dupre because she was on a working party that spent some considerable time discussing and exploring the ways forward with Mepal Outdoor Centre. And she was aware that there was a selection process, and she was aware, or is aware, that the person who, or the organisation who was finally selected to have a similar replacement operation pulled out as a result of non-viability. So I believe that you're fortunate in having someone who has a particularly extensive knowledge about the issues with Mepal, and can I point you in her direction and suggest you really feed off her knowledge? Thank you.
Thank you. We have, I live in the same village as Lorna, obviously I know Lorna. We've had initial discussions with Lorna and Mark, but not in depth. No, we haven't gone, because our main job at the moment was to talk to community members and to find out. There was no point Mercedes and I pushing a campaign if there wasn't any community interest, but we've discovered there is community interest. So what we have to do now is continue talking, and talking with yourselves, talking with other councillors as well. So.
Right, so thank you very much, Councillor. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, having trouble. Do you think there is any possibilities of getting together groups of voluntary organisations which could come together and each operate their own particular sphere or activity, such as a sailing group or a climbing group or the various different things? Is that the sort of thing that you think might happen, rather than trying to get one commercial organisation to run it, to try and get it done by groups of local organisations with particular interests in their own particular area, so they would be more committed to making things happen? Is that a possibility, do you think, from the context you've had?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's also been quite a large feature of our conversations. The recognition that actually to take that on as one organisation is a big task. However, given the feeling we've come across from different groups and also businesses who offer specific sports, specific leisure activities, interests, particularly the woodland educational type workshops and that kind of thing. And I think that would be part of the conversation to be had. How would we manage as a community and run this space? And we would need to take on the right partners to make sure it works. So yeah, we've had those conversations.
Thanks, Colin. Actually, I'd like to ask a question myself. Don't often do this, but I would really like to now. I've got you in front of me. So I was just wondering, because the council did have a public tendering process which went out to a lot of organisations to get expression of interest. And of course, we did get the expression of interest, which eventually failed. So what more do you think we could have done to get real genuine interest? So I absolutely understand there'll be lots of people who have really real keen interest in that, but it's genuine interest that we didn't appear to get last time, but as you're suggesting we could get now.
Can I ask when that tendering process was?
That was prior to
Roughly.
Trying to revert it to its original state as a leisure centre. So that was some while ago. So
I think I'd have to look at the tendering and see who approached you and what they were suggesting. I don't know if I can answer that without knowing more about what.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. It was just that I was wondering whether you had been aware that process had actually gone on in the past, and unfortunately the process failed this time round in order to do that. That was
I don't think I was. Mercedes has been, but I also want to say I think actually what we've realised I think is the more, I wouldn't say open, but the more adaptable our imaginations are to it, the more we might be surprised by the people that come forward with ideas. That's what we think.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to ask Councillor Bailey to respond to the petition. I hope you think that you've had a good airing of questions and been able to expand on your points of view as well, apart from just the petition. So Councillor Bailey, would you like to respond?
Thank you very much, Chairman, and I'd like to thank residents for bringing this petition to the council, and particularly to Colin and Mercedes for coming and presenting it and answering quite a lot of questions this evening, so thanks for that. And of course, we have taken note that 468 local people plus a further 183 unidentified but local people have signed the petition. And I share with you a strong desire to ensure a sustainable future for the Mepal site. First and foremost, it has to be understood that the site is a key biodiversity asset in our district. The site is both beautiful, it's ecologically important, it's matured since the outdoor centre ceased to trade. Basically, nature's moved in, it's taken over, and the wildlife is really flourishing on that site, which is something to be celebrated. And I'd like people to understand, therefore, that whatever the future for this site, that future has got to protect and respect the wildlife and biodiversity that exists there. You could take the attitude and say that the site is constrained by the ecological assets, but I'd actually prefer to think of this positively as the wonderful asset that we actually have. And in line with the commitments made in our environment and climate change strategy, which received unanimous cross-party support of this council, we must go further than this. We've not got to just protect the natural assets, but we must actually work to enhance them. And I'd also like to remind members of the opposition and our residents that we recently adopted the Natural Environment Supplementary Planning Document, and that now forms a material part of our planning policy. And again, this received unanimous cross-party support. So any development of the site will have to be instructed by what it says. The council did work incredibly hard in good faith, as I've previously outlined, to try to secure continued use of the site for outdoor pursuits. We were unbelievably disappointed when that went wrong, and members of this council that served on that, including the opposition members, know that was hard to take. So despite our considerable cross-party efforts, it just wasn't possible to secure a sustainable community reuse of the site by a third party. Organisations just couldn't find a way to make it stack up financially. Anyone investing in the site, including the council, will need to look for a return to pay for the cost of that investment. And the outdoor education and leisure sector is now suffering massive financial hardship across the country in the wake of the COVID pandemic. And indeed, the outdoor education sites run by the county council are suffering enormous financial problems, along with private sector leisure providers across the country. The council needs to secure a use for the site that respects its natural assets and that it can pay for. And we need to take steps to support our medium-term financial strategy, something that this council has an excellent track record of doing. And we always look for solutions that benefit the community whilst helping to support the cost of frontline services, such as our brilliant housing team who helped us to ensure that people don't become homeless. So looking for a use that will respect the site's ecology and help to generate an income is a reasonable, responsible and I think positive thing to do. Site use is constrained for the reasons I've previously outlined. So investigating the possibility of using the site to realise our ambition for a crematorium in our district is a sensible and reasonable and logical thing to do. What we have now is the opportunity to provide a green crematorium, woodland burial facility and pet cemetery, which would fulfil the need for a self-supporting reuse of the site that responds to and respects the site's biodiversity needs, and it would provide a new facility for local residents that isn't currently available in our district. So we hope too that some appropriate recreational use of the site may also be possible. And Councillor Wilson's suggestion that local groups might be able to organise and take advantage of that is absolutely welcomed, and we're working on that basis. But I have to emphasise that absolutely has to be dictated by the biodiversity and ecology needs of the site, which have to drive what is possible to use on the site. And I will set out later, in response to a question from a member, where we're up to with site investigations and next steps. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you very much indeed, Colin and Mercedes, for coming and doing this. It was really, really interesting conversation. Thank you. And we hope you feel you've had the opportunity. We didn't have a 5-minute debate, but it was pretty close, I think. So that's great. Thank you very much indeed. Now we're going to let our public members go. And I'd just like to thank everybody, for the members, for behaving really well with your muting and unmuting. And we will continue with this because it's obviously working really well. And so we're now going to move on to agenda item 7. So we're moving now to agenda item number 8. And these are questions from members. Could I just remind members that, unlike the public questions, the question is asked and there is an answer given, and there is no further questioning or coming back on that a question. So it's a question asked and a question answered, and then we move on to the next question. So the first question I have is Councillor Inskip. Are you here?
Yeah, yes, I'm here.
Oh, yes, you are. Sorry. So I can't see people's faces because you sort of move around. So are you happy to ask your question now, Councillor Inskip?
Yes, yeah. So, so question to the Leader of the Council. So the District Council has commissioned an extensive set of surveys and assessments of the Mepal Outdoor Centre site over the past year. These include a preliminary ecology appraisal, a groundwater risk assessment survey, a topographical survey, numerous daytime bird, winter bird surveys, breeding bird, reptile and botanical surveys. In her interview with the Ely Standard on the 18th of August, the Leader of the Council referred to the biodiversity of the site and some important wildlife. Presumably this is confirmed by the surveys and the assessments. And I think effectively in the earlier discussion on the petition, Councillor Bailey said as much this evening. Neither opposition councillors or members of the public, however, have had access to the surveys or assessments, and we can at the moment only speculate as to the details in the documents. In response to the Freedom of Information request FOI EIR 2021-170 issued last month, requesting publication of the documents, the council argued that the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information until submission of the planning application. Given the level of public interest demonstrated by the petition of over 2,300, I think it's now over 2,400 names presented to the council, why is it necessary to continue to keep these documents secret, particularly if there's an intent to publish them later this year? And if there is an intent to publish, as implied in the response to the Freedom of Information request, can she confirm that every document listed in that request will be published in November, and on what date in November?
Thank you, Councillor Inskip. Councillor Bailey.
Very much, and thank you, Councillor Inskip, for his question. I think we have established earlier, in fact, that the petition does not have 2,500 valid signatures. It's 468 plus 100 and something. My starting point with this is to reiterate that the detail of the preliminary ecological appraisal, the groundwater risk assessment and the site investigation survey were reported in some detail to all members of this council when full council considered the outline business case for the crematorium project. It was also confirmed at the special full council meeting that the preliminary ecological appraisal needed to be further supplemented because of what it had found with a broad range of further ecological survey work, so that there was comprehensive detail of all ecological matters across all seasons of the year. So that's what has been pursued. So the work has been progressed as planned, but the fire that took place on the Mepal site has resulted in the last of the survey work having to be rescheduled, which has caused delay in being able to report on ecological matters. I think it's important that we need to consider the ecological assets of the site in the round. And to do that, we obviously need to complete all the survey work first. But happily, the final survey was actually completed earlier this week. And we will now be putting all of the survey findings into a summary report. All the survey documents will obviously form part of the planning application, which, as we've already said, is intended to be submitted in November 2020, and therefore will be publicly available as your motion asks. To reassure East Cambridgeshire residents, the council will of course be seeking their views on the project as part of the planning application. This will include the following information being made available to the public through a dedicated page on the council's website. So a planning policy statement to confirm that the project is compliant with the current planning policy of this council, design concept visuals with a landscape plan, CGI visuals of the proposed development, and statements on the site survey work and ecology. And obviously the detailed surveys form part of the planning application, as I've already said. There will also be a link from the website to an online survey for members of the public to complete and return. I think this is the best way to directly inform the public about the project, and as part of the planning application to get their views on the project. And of course, planning application requires the applicant to fully and accurately report findings of such public consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. So now we move on to question 2, which is from Councillor Matt Downey.